Well, a good Sunday to you. Thanks for finding us here at Fox 26. I'm meteorologist John Dawson. This is our tropical update where we can really dive into things and focus on what's happening out there in the tropics so that nothing surprises you. And we've had some very specific details to talk about over the last couple of weeks because we've had tropical waves, we have had areas of interest, we've had named storms, and lots of invests, things to really focus on. But today, we get to talk about my favorite message from the National Hurricane Center, especially in September. Tropical cyclone formation is not expected during the next 7 days. This is the message that I most like to hear from the National Hurricane Center. But there is going to be plenty of other little details that we can discuss a little bit, but I like the headlines, that's for sure, about what we're looking at. And the bottom line is this is the time of year when we continue to see storm systems roll off the Africa coast. Once they get out here in the waters, they turn into these tropical waves, and then we have to watch them and see what happens as they continue to move to the west across the tropical Atlantic. And sometimes they develop into something, sometimes they don't. So we'll continue to see that kind of activity happening. But this is also the time of the year when typically that Saharan dust, also blowing off of the coast of Africa, begins to weaken a little bit. And we have seen some weakening, and we've certainly seen these bigger gaps that have been taking place. It's not just a consistent flow, but there's still a good bunch of it out there, and particularly this kind of section here that's leading the charge. This is what squashed Invest 91L that we had been tracking for about a week, and finally it got out into this dust and some other drier air, and it just didn't have a chance. And that's why we're no longer discussing it. If you'll remember yesterday, if you were checking in with us, we decreased those chances of tropical development drastically. But even just 3 days before, though, they were up in the high categories. So this dust really did that in quite quickly. And again, it was one of those scenarios where we just had a window there for development, and it just didn't make that window when the conditions were more favorable. We've been talking about the Atlantic a lot here recently when we've been looking at the tropical development. We just haven't had a whole lot to say about the Caribbean and the Gulf. The Caribbean has had some upper level winds that have kind of been helping to prevent things from happening. There's just been nothing going on really in the Gulf. But that is something I'm going to be watching a little bit closer. Now, again, our message from the National Hurricane Center is they don't think anything's going to develop over the next 7 days. But this is the time of the year when we want to watch a scenario like this. Although it's not favored, I just want you to kind of be aware of what's laid out on the table out here. And in the Gulf, there's this stalled boundary, this front that's stalling. And if you're like me here in the Houston area in southeast Texas, this front is actually still kind of moving through. It hadn't completely parked itself. But as we look at the next 24 hours or so, we'll have a stalled front here. We've got a couple of these little sort of low pressure areas. And I just kind of put 1L here just to kind of tell you what we're watching. And that low pressure is going to try or one of them that's kind of around here is first of all going to give a lot of rain for Florida. But this low pressure is going to try to kind of just ride along this boundary here, and it's going to end up a little bit more over into the Atlantic. And as I said, there's a couple different sort of low pressure areas that are going to try to maybe get together or just kind of do their own thing. But that's something that we watch for tropical development. And as I mentioned, not a lot of high signs that this would develop into something tropical, but this is a scenario where we find ourselves, and so I'm just kind of letting you know about it, that maybe something could develop into here. And we say that now because, you know, there's a lot shorter warning if anything were to happen. If this starts looking like it wants to become a tropical system or something like this, the warning time is a lot less. So just kind of wanted you to know it's a little closer, but as I mentioned, it does look like it would kind of flow out and into the Atlantic and be more of an Atlantic issue overall. So we do have these chances for development from the Climate Prediction Center. You saw the one out over Africa. That's pretty typical. And the areas out here would be along that front as well. This is more in the 2-week version. So the Climate Prediction Center, they put that out there much further than even the 7 days. So I will say, watch what we've got one of our computer models doing here, and we'll see a little bit of a spin here as those storms coming off the African coast. There's that potential, a little bit of a spin. Signs aren't strong enough right now that the Hurricane Center is flagging this, because here we are on Thursday of the week coming up. This kind of does this little thing out here for a little bit, and then you'll see another little storm system coming off of the coast, and there's that little bit of a rotation of possibly trying to get into a low. This is all the way a week from where we are today. So what I thought was going to be Gabrielle didn't turn out, right? That was that Invest 91L. I thought for sure we were going to be able to check that next name off the list. Didn't happen, so we're still waiting for Gabrielle. We don't have any favorable signs of development of where that might be next, but we'll be here every day of hurricane season, keeping you updated. If you're viewing us right now on YouTube, which I highly recommend, by the way, Fox Local is another great option, so is fox26houston.com. But if you're already here on YouTube, and I'm at the conclusion of my little video here, get into the search bar and type Meteorologist John Dawson. That's me, that's my page that you'll find. Or Hurricane Gear Test. That's the segment I do to keep people ready and prepared for hurricane season. Again, Hurricane Gear Test. Look it up, look at the videos, make sure that you get some fresh ideas and that you're staying prepared for hurricane season. We're about to get to the peak, and we could still continue to see plenty of activity here as we're wrapping up or as we sort of are getting to the peak, and then we start moving into the end of September. All right, that'll do it for today. We'll be back here again tomorrow with another tropical update.